Welkom terug hier by die Groot Ontbyt, Groot FM 90.5 en ons almal weet nou van die groot boot in die Suez-kanaal en ek het gesien in die koerant gister, Saterdag is hy toe nou uiteindelik oopgestel. So die agterstand was omtrent 422 skepe en die laaste een is toe nou deur en ek het gesien die Amerikaanse, daai verskriklike vliegdekskip, die USS Dwight Eisenhower, het ook toe nou Vrydag deurgegaan. Maar dis verskriklike groot goed hier, maar ons praat dan nou met 'n kenner en dit is kaptein Rahul Khanna, Elsa.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Khanna, and thank you so much for joining us on the Groot Ontbyt.
Good morning to you all.
Mr. Khanna, I would like to start with your professional background.
I sailed on ships for roughly about 14 years, last couple of years as a captain of large oil tankers and some of the other types of ships. And then I was working in London as a senior consultant with the shipping consultancy, doing casualty investigations, doing survey work, and consultancy work. And about 10 years ago, I joined Allianz as a senior risk consultant. And for the last 6 years, I've been the global head for risk consulting for Allianz Marine Insurance Division.
And I think it's important to also refer to some background regarding Ever Given specifically. So what can you share with us or tell us about this big ship?
Well, I think the Ever Given is one of the largest vessels in the world at the moment. I think it's probably in the top 1% of the ships in the world. Now, the container ships have, over the past 50 years since the time they began, have increased in size roughly about 1,500%. And in the last 10 years, they have doubled in size. We refer to the container ship sizes in terms of TEU, i.e., 20 equivalent units. That essentially means the capacity of 20-foot containers that these ships can take. So back in the days, say about even 10 years ago, we used to look at 3,000, 4,000 TEU ships as big ships. But today we are talking about ships which can carry as much as 24,000 containers. So the size has exponentially increased in the last 10 years or so. And now Ever Given is roughly 20,000 TEUs. So she is in the top 1% of the world in terms of size and capacity.
How do operators approach the salvage of such a huge ship, and what are some of the challenges that you can point out?
Well, we at Allianz have been taking out the safety and shipping review for the last few years, and we have regularly indicated this as the latest risk trend, that the sizes of these ships have grown up, which is absolutely fine. This is due to economies of scale, because these ships can carry so much cargo, it becomes a lot cheaper to carry one unit, and hence the industry has been supporting the increasing size of these vessels. But increasing the size also brings in a lot of risks with it. And I think at some stage the risk with has come in, but the risk mitigation measures haven't kept up with this. If such large ships are involved in an incident, for example, going aground like the Ever Given went aground, or in collision or a fire or any such incident, then the salvage of this becomes a lot more difficult and complex because you have many different aspects involved in it. To start with, these types of vessels have been around now for only 4 or 5 years in that respect, and salvors do not have enough expertise in dealing with such casualties in these vessels. And also the equipment that is needed for refloating such vessels is not easily available. We saw in this Ever Given case that some larger tugs had to be called in, and it took a few days for them to come over to Suez-Canal to assist in refloating the vessels. So equipment, the expertise, the manpower is difficult to get. The other thing is if these vessels are damaged, then taking them to a repair yard is going to be another issue because they're not available so easily because of the size of the vessels. Not many ports and not many repair yards can actually have the capability to repair and accommodate such vessels. Then if you had, for example, if you had a fire, which we have seen in the last few years, we will have a huge issue about taking out the containers, and that's another big problem. So there's plenty of myriad of complex issues which come along when salving and attending to incidents with such vessels.
Well, there's still a lot of questions left, so we'll continue with this discussion after the news.
En 'n vraag wat ek sal graag wil weet, net dat hy vinnig vir ons verduidelik net nou wat presies het fout gegaan, en dan ook, as jy dit nou nie geweet het nie, die storie nie gevolg het nie, van die 23ste Maart, die feit dat hierdie boot het nou, of hierdie skip dit geblok het die wêreldekonomie 6 miljard per uur verloor.
Sure.
Nie per dag of per maand nie,
Per uur.
per
Dis
uur.
baie.
En dan wil ek ook by hom uitvind, is dit deel van hierdie versekering? Wie vat verantwoordelikheid, of is dit jou eie versekering per boot, as jy nou nie betyds alles kan aflewer nie? En dan ook het hulle so om die Kaap geseil, so hopelik daar 'n paar ouens 'n geldjie gemaak. As jy net ingeskakel het hier op Groot FM 90.5 en kyk net, ons gesels nou oor die groot skip wat nou die Suez-kanaal geblokkeer het. Maar ek het die antwoord gekry. Lida van der Merwe sê dis hoe belangrik dit dat taal so belangrik is. Sy was blykbaar 'n Afrikaanse kaptein gewees en veral by skeepvaart. En dit is die vas en los spel van woorde. Die instruksie was aan die kaptein van hierdie skip: jy moet dwars deur die Suez-kanaal vaar. En wat hy gehoor het is jy moet dwars deur die Suez-kanaal vaar. dwars deur. Dit is so snaaks, maar kom ons praat dan eerder met 'n kenner.
Ja. Wel, so op daai noot gaan ons voort met vanoggend se gesprek. Kaptein Rahul Khanna van die groep Allianz Global Corporate and Speciality kuier vanoggend saam om meer agtergrond rakende hierdie onlangse Suez-kanaal-blokkasie te gee. So thanks again for joining us, Captain Khanna. And I know that we've referred to background regarding this case a little bit earlier, but what exactly went wrong and why did it take so long to solve this problem?
Well, the exact circumstances of the accident we're still not aware. That will come out only when detailed investigation is carried out. But the initial reports which mentioned that because of the wind, the vessel veered, of course, and these are very narrow channels. And because of the vessel size, there's not much space to maneuver them. It could have been that the wind pushed the vessels. Now you have to remember that because we talked about the size of this vessel, this is like a huge wall of containers. And the higher these walls and the larger this surface area which is available, the wind has more effect on such ships. So they can push it around a lot more than smaller vessels. So with the windage area as one problem that could have happened. The other very obvious problem could be an engine problem. We don't know all these facts yet, but I'm at the moment trying to talk about what could have gone wrong. And then thirdly, there could have been a master, captain or a pilot error on board. So these are the few things that can happen. There are some other causes also. There's typically one more issue when you're navigating in narrow channels, and especially when the size of the ship is quite large with respect to the channel, you can have something called a bank effect, and that essentially is another hydrodynamics form of effect, which makes the vessel move a little bit more than it normally would. It's like a suction effect and pushes the vessel towards the banks rather than stay her in the middle. So there could be one or more of such reasons which would have caused this incident, and we should not, at this point of time, rightly not speculate on the cause. Let the investigation happen, and we'll surely find out. Now, these ships always carry the voyage data recorders. That is the black box of, if we compare it to the aircrafts, and I'm sure those investigations will detail the recordings from the VDRs to find out what exactly went wrong.
Captain Khanna, Jorna referred to insurance earlier. So assuming that the grounding of the Ever Given will continue, what are the potential claim scenarios in scope for an insurance perspective?
So ships are very international. They're very international in the way they're owned, the way they are operated. You could have various types of insurances involved in them. So the first and foremost insurance is what we call the hull and machinery insurance. Now that essentially takes care of any damage to the ship itself. So the owners will take out a hull and machinery insurance, and the insurers would pay out the cost of any damage to the ship itself. Then the other part of the insurance is the liability insurance. So the ship's owner liability to any third parties. In this particular case, for example, the Suez Canal will already be claiming the damages to the canal itself. but they'll also be claiming the damages or the delays and loss of revenue from the blockage of canal. So 6 days there were no vessels which could navigate the canal, and this has cost a loss of revenue for the Suez Canal itself. So these two types of insurances are the primary insurances, excuse me, and they are the ones who would pay for most of the claims that are originating. There's a third type of insurance which is taken out by the cargo owners. So the people who have sent their containers in and their cargoes are on board the Ever Given, they might wish to claim for something like any damages to the cargo that has happened, especially the cargoes which are perishable in nature. And if they have got spoiled or they have got damaged, then they would claim against the ship owner as well. And there are some other specialist type of policies as well, which might be able to pay out some other liability claims. But in general, these three are the key criteria for insurances to be considered.
Captain Jornay, it's just very interesting for me, and it just shows you how important insurance, how important it is to have insurance, because I mean it's just the economy worldwide, the amount of money lost, and it's very interesting to realize it's a world that we don't know. We're sitting here in Pretoria. I don't know that whole world of shipping, and it just shows you how it's really, really important to be insured.
Absolutely. I think common people, it's very hard to understand, excuse me, why insurance is so important. The sums involved here are astronomical. Suez Canal, on a report I heard, is already claiming more than $1 billion for the loss that they suffered. Wow. Now, from a trade perspective, roughly on a daily basis, $9 to $10 billion worth of trade passes through Suez Canal, and the canal was shut for around 6 days. So you can imagine the amount of goods that could not reach their destination, and these are going to have a knock-on effect on production, on sales, and in fact, in your local supermarket, you may be running short of things for a short period of time because of this incident. Now, for people to understand this, unfortunately, it takes an incident like this, which brings the global eyeballs onto the shipping industry. But 90% of the world trade runs on shipping. That's a number which frequently is forgotten. But the lifeline of shipping, the lifeline of the world trade is shipping, and insurances keep the shipping running. I mean, we talked about the large ships earlier, and we at Allianz did a simulation. What would happen in a nightmare scenario that two ships like these, like an Ever Given or another big ship like this, or a passenger vessel with 7,000 passengers on board, if they had a collision, for example, and the cost for dealing with that incident to the industry could be upwards of $4 billion. And all this money is available only because they have various types of insurances in place. And the huge insurance market works behind the scenes quietly to support the industry.
Captain Khanna, if ships are unable to go through the Suez Canal or canal, is there any chance that they can take the longer route around the African coast, for instance?
Yes, indeed. The alternative route from south of the African continent, going through South Africa, all the way around, going to Europe, for example, or coming back from Europe to Middle East or Asia, that route and that option is always available to ships. But it adds roughly 9,000 kilometers of sailing time from a typical route from, say, Middle East to Europe. So Suez Canal is definitely a shortcut, if you like, and sailing 9,000 kilometers more would mean not only cost, but anything between 9 to 15, 20 days for different types of ship, because they navigate with different speeds. So the option is always available, and ships do take that option, and some of the very large ships at times do go around the African continent, because the cost-benefit analysis doesn't allows them to do that. There are obviously canal fees that has to be paid if you go through the Suez Canal, and you can save that once you go around. But the cost of fuel itself for sailing 15 odd days more is a lot more. Hence, Suez Canal is used so frequently by all types of vessels over the years.
In essence, what is the likely impact on global supply chains, and what goods may be affected?
Well, that's a hard question to answer, because It all depends on the majority of the goods that were stuck for 6-7 days. But container ships carry a lot of the finished goods from Asian manufacturing hubs to the Western world, and vice versa. Some other products going around. But containers is not the only thing that passes through the Suez Canal. You have the bulk commodities like oil, like crude oil going into refineries, and refined products coming back from the Suez Canal, like gasoline, diesel, petrol, and etc. Then you also have commodities like iron ore. You have food stuff like grains. There's plenty of rice and wheat and all that stuff moves around. You have livestock. So all that has got affected a knock-on effect. But one of the immediate things that we picked up were we already having microchips or semiconductor microchip shortages in the West, which was hampering production of computers, of cars. Most of the cars cannot operate today without microchips. We had a major fire in Japan not so long ago, and that was already causing constriction to the supplies. And this will exacerbate that effect. We've also had problems with plastic manufacturing because in Texas, in the United States, we had the massive snowstorm which shut down factories and electricity and power in that area, and that supply chain element was already under a lot of stress. These sort of things will have a further knock-on effect because of the Suez Canal blockages. I think we should consider ourselves lucky that the canal was only blocked for 6 days. Otherwise, we would have seen a lot more impact.
Absolutely. Dis kaptein Rahul Khanna van Allianz Global Corporate and Specialty. Captain Khanna, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Ja, dit is baie insiggewend. Ek sien hier sê iemand ook het nou baie geniet. Dit is van Sekunda, Johan Stein, oor hierdie gesprek. En net interessant ook vir my, as hy nou gesê het van die wind, want ek het nou nie besef nie. Ek het nou 'n bietjie gaan kyk hoe groot is hierdie goeders. Hierdie 20,000 containers, as hulle bo op mekaar staan, die boonste deel van hierdie skip is omtrent amper 60 meter. Dan is hy nog 30 meter onder die grond. Maar nou vat nou net 'n verdieping is 3 meter. So kom ek hier, braai daar by my, dan kyk jy daar by Sunnyside by die woonstelle. En hoe dit lyk as jy onder 'n 20 verdieping woonstel staan. Dis hoe hoog hierdie ding is. So jy kan absoluut dink hoe die wind so ding kan vat. Dis massief.